Police hunt for a suspect in the island's latest deadly shooting incident. That's our top story in our Barbados Today afternoon news update for Wednesday, December the 27th. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Police are on the hunt for a man suspected of gunning down an Eden Lodge, St. Michael resident last night. 21-year-old Tavon Allen was shot multiple times while at Eden Lodge, but died later after being rushed to hospital by private vehicle. Police say that around 7 p.m., Allen was walking through a track near his home when a man approached him and shot him several times before fleeing the scene. Opposition leader Mayor Mortley will lead a list of Barbados Labour Party Northern St. Michael candidates in a review of the year 2017 tomorrow evening. The end-of-year mass meeting at the Lawrence T. Gay Memorial School on Spooners Hill will see 6 candidates also discussing the state of affairs in Barbados and making projections for the coming year. The speakers include Dale Marshall, Kerry Simmons, Arthur Holder, Ronald Toppin, and Ian Goodin-Edgill. St. Michael West candidate Joseph Atherley and St. Philip West hopeful John King will chair the meeting that begins at 6:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Cabinet Minister and Parliamentary Representative for St. James South, Donville Innes, has admitted that his government has failed to properly address the rent-to-own arrangement for residents in the Haynesville housing area. Speaking at the scene of the most recent house fire in that community on Christmas Day, Innes blamed the government's handling of the matter for the delay in legally transferring ownership to tenants who have been paying rent for the last 20 years.
Being able to say, look, I have paid rent here for the last 20 years, now I have the property, I can go to the bank and mortgage it, or my daughter or son can use it as security and get a piece of land elsewhere. No, it's not being perfected, I must confess that. There are several matters that needed to be addressed, and perhaps in retrospect, as the government, we did not address them in the manner in which they ought to be addressed. And that's not without Michael Lashley, Dan Skell, and others having the will to do it. Several matters have arisen. One, since there are pretty much condominiums or units are joined to one another, how do you transfer ownership? Condominium Act, other things. Those matters are small, they're being addressed. Several people in Haynesville have gotten title deeds to the property. The other issue was common services, electrical services, plumbing services, and such like. And of course, the Chief Town Planning Officer's perspective on the matters.
Innes also noted that while qualified residents in the government's housing units may no longer have to pay rent, there still remains the vexing issue of who is really responsible for maintenance.
But until you have your title deeds in your hand, the issue is who really owns the property. So the intent of the state is that the tenants and the residents of Haynesville, Ferniehurst, Deacons, Civil Hill, whatever they are, will own the property. And if you die before the title deeds are transferred, the property still goes to your benefit, your estate, pretty much. In the meanwhile, the legal issue remains as to who shall be responsible for matters such as maintenance of the property, insurance, and such like. And that, I submit to you, is a little gray area there.
But the opposition Barbados Labour Party's candidate for the area, Sandra Husbands, has placed the onus squarely on the shoulders of the government to maintain the housing units. Husbands also said that to date, she has not received a response from the National Housing Corporation to a petition submitted to it on November the 9th, calling for that state entity to prioritize the rewiring of the aged housing units following a second fire last October.
These residents will need legal representation, because what is a further compound to this issue is the fact that the government wants to give over these houses to residents without the electrical wiring being done, without the firewalls being sorted out, without the wells being done. How do they expect these residents to cope with that when they step out of the picture?
Meanwhile, police are continuing their investigations into the circumstances surrounding that Christmas morning fire which destroyed the home of 48-year-old St. Clair Allen and damaged 2 other units. The island's privately owned public service vehicles will operate under much greater scrutiny from around the middle of next year. Still concerned over the level and type of music being played on board the PSVs, the lawless behavior, and the ad hoc wearing of uniform, the Umbrella Alliance Owners of Public Transport has announced that the command center will be up and running by June 2018.
The command center will have two components. One, the first component will be monitoring of all PSVs via GPS system, and also the public will get an opportunity to see where the next bus will be at that particular time. Then the second phase of the command center will see a patrol unit where the inspectors will be patrolling and actually responding to reports out there, particularly from complaints from the command center. So you have situations where these inspectors will have the authority. They will be the same inspectors who will be hired by the Transport Authority and the Ministry of Transport. But basically what we're doing is that we're calling for our own inspectors where they will be employed by us and will be part of our operational program, which we call the command center. And hopefully within now and the middle of the year, the public should feel safer where they can call into the command center, make complaints, and we have our investigative team out there go there and investigate and report back to the command center.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region now. The mantle of Roman Catholic leadership in Trinidad and Tobago will be passed on to the Bishop Charles Jason Gordon this afternoon when he is installed as Archbishop. He will become the 11th Archbishop of Port of Spain during an installation mass at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception.
Archbishop Joseph Harris, who is retired from the post, will lead the installation rites. Traffic will be prohibited around the southern, eastern and western areas of the cathedral in Port of Spain from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. The ceremony begins at 5 p.m. Archbishop-elect Gordon was appointed to the position in October by Pope Francis.
In more regional news, the St. Lucia government pledges to complete a $500,000 payout to cultural performers this week. Minister responsible for the Festivals Commission, Chet Green, says the government is keeping its commitment to pay service providers and performers who have taken part in the country's major cultural activities.
We made some of the payments on Friday. Some will be made, or the remainder I hope will be made by tomorrow. And so by tomorrow we've exhausted $500,000 in payments to service providers. We're trying to get another $20,000 or so. Again, before the turn of the year, so we can make an additional payment. But there's a commitment to make sure we pay down on all our expenses, all our indebtedness. And I do thank our stakeholders for understanding the situation. I know that they themselves have their own issues, but I think all of us have been caught up in the hurricane relief situation.
And on the international scene, former U.S. President Barack Obama has urged people in leadership positions not to use social media in a way that fosters division. In a BBC interview conducted by Britain's Prince Harry, Obama warned that the internet risks in reinforcing people's prejudices and leading to a fractured society.
One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases. The question, I think, really has to do with how do we harness this technology in a way that allows a multiplicity of voices, allows a diversity of views, but doesn't lead to a balkanization of our society, but rather continues to promote ways of finding common ground.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.